This Week in Startups is brought to you by Squarespace. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code TWIST to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. And Texture. To start your free trial, go to texture.com/twist. If you continue, get Texture for just $9.99 a month, over 30% off their listed price.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. It's our news roundtable. And yes, you hear a little bit of cold there. I have the flu, but we're going to power through it. There's tons of news in Silicon Valley. With me, Ryan Block, the co-founder and head of product at Begin. Previously, the editor-in-chief of Engadget. Good to see you. Welcome back to the program.
Good to see you, Jay.
Good to see you. And Jeff Bercovici.
Beautiful.
Bercovici. I got it. I'm going super Italian. Bercovici is here, San Francisco bureau chief of Inc. You got a book coming out about longevity. Tell us about that.
I do. It's about the sports science behind elite athletic performance at any age, and it's coming out in May. It's called Play On.
It's fascinating because they say now like the 60s are the new 40s, 70s are the new 30s, whatever. What is leading this resurgence in people in their 60s looking like they have bodies in their 20s? Are people just taking human growth hormone? Is that what this is all about?
Some people are taking human growth hormone, and that does something. It increases muscle mass, although not necessarily muscle strength.
Got it.
But I think, more than anything, I think it's just a generational thing. It's a difference in how the generation that's now aging into that cohort approaches fitness. There's a big divide like before and after with the baby boomers, and then I think there's an equally significant divide with Gen X that people just are that much more active and have expectations of themselves.
And there's a lot of like science and trends now, from Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Body and paleo, and it's just people are thinking about this kind of self-optimization, quantified self stuff a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the high intensity, the popularity of high intensity workouts is a big thing. There's a ton of good research showing that like interval training is the best thing you can do basically if you want to keep your VO2 max up and things like that. Yeah,
this HIIT training
right.
essentially means, correct me if I'm wrong, that you just go as hard as you can for a short period of time, as opposed to spending 90 minutes in the gym going at a medium pace forever.
Right. Yes, and that's there's something a similar concept called polarization training.
No, I don't know.
So that's basically intervals. So you want like 20% of your workouts to be like high intensity and short. And you want 80% of your workouts to be really low intensity and long. You're just doing them for volume.
Got it.
So the biggest mistake people make is training too hard on the easy days and too easy on the hard days.
Too hard on the easy days and too easy on the hard days.
Right.
And so going hard is what it's all about, even if you just do it for a short period of time.
Yeah, basically.
Why did you choose to write this book? I'm curious.
I chose to write it. I got really into soccer when I was in my mid-30s, and I loved it, completely loved it. Like immediately from day one, realized like I'm not a kid anymore, but still loved it. Kept hurting myself, and I just started paying a lot of attention to professional athletes, saying like how are these guys? How is Tom Brady still playing quarterback at 40? How is Ryan Giggs still playing for Manchester United at 38? And started researching what they were doing, and I realized like if I'm interested, other people will be.
It's very interesting. I saw Vince Carter dunk, and every time Vince Carter dunks now, he trends on Twitter. And everybody has the same joke, which is like, Vince Carter out here dunking at 42. He's going to be 42 years old, and he's dunking in the NBA.
People are obsessed with older athletes. If you start paying attention to it like you do when you're writing a book, you realize how much of sports media is about people's age and who's defying expectations.
Right. Is LeBron going to be like the poster child of all this? Is he going to have the career that just goes on forever that we didn't expect? Or do you think he's going to break down like everybody's saying?
He's got a lot of miles on his body. And we saw with Kobe that when it starts, it happens really fast.
They fall off a cliff, right? The Achilles pops and then all of a sudden it's over.
Right, yeah. Kobe had probably had more serious injuries, so that's on LeBron's side, but I wouldn't bet on him playing in 10 years.
And longevity, do you think we're going to have a massive jump in our lifetimes in terms of our age? And let's call massive jump greater than 5 years or 10 years in life expectancy added in our lifetime. Because I don't know what we're adding every year now. It's a couple of months, so.
Well, define our, because you get into a whole question of who has access to the things that prolong longevity.
Yeah, okay, let's just say it's available regardless of cost. Just will the technology exist independent of cost? To live past 100, to live to 125 or something like that. Because we hear people live to 100, and we all know somebody who lived to 100, right? We have got a cousin or a second cousin or a friend who has a parent who lived to 100. But I don't know anybody who's lived to 110 or 100, certainly not 120. Do you guys know anybody who lived to 110 or 20 personally, or a friend who had somebody? Right, nobody does. But do you each know somebody who lived to 100? Or a friend of, yeah. So
close.
Let's say knowing somebody who lived to 110 or 120. Will we know somebody who lived to 110, 120?
There's actually a paper that came out last summer that says that they think that there might be some kind of theoretical limit at 120, because all of the lines, if you look at like all the trend lines in longevity in different societies, they all end there. Like there's been no increase in anybody living above 120, no matter what happens.
There's an off switch.
All depends on how you define living too. I mean, upload the consciousnly and you can live to infinity. As long as there's electricity.
Oh, that's Max Levchin's thing, yeah. But I have to think that if you look at, the like 3 or 4 most common causes of mortality, will there be a breakthrough in one of them that would increase average lifespan by 5 years? Yeah, I think so in our lifetime. Probably more than one.
Seems reasonable, right, Ryan?
I think so.
I mean, if you just look at cancer, almost all of the cancers that were considered, or many of the cancers that were considered just death sentences for our grandparents are considered manageable for our parents, which means for us or for our kids, they will be extremely manageable, or maybe even not recognizable, or they won't even have to confront them, our kids. It seems plausible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gene therapy alone could be, was it for, I'm not an expert on cancer, but that's
the gene therapy for cancer seems to be the thing that will work. All right, we got a ton to talk to, and Facebook seems to be the story of 2017, and in 2018, they seem to be taking a stance of we're going to fix this no matter what it takes, and they are saying now they're going to prioritize your friends and family over publishers and brand content. And the speculation over Russian bots, and that this might lead to maybe lower engagement, but increased positive experience. And in fact, I read when I was looking at this that they want people to leave Facebook feeling good. So I'll start with what are your overall thoughts, Ryan, on Facebook's impact and the year they had in 2017? And what do you think they should be attempting to do with their feed? Because the explicit intention of Facebook since the beginning was to take as much of our time as possible. And it didn't matter what means were necessary. Now they've hit escape velocity. They're a huge company. What should their explicit goal be? What should the goal of the algorithm be? So,
well, I mean, whatever Zuck says it should be, right?
No, but what should it be?
Yeah.
If they need to deal with this massive regulation and the hatred for their platform that they're under and the scrutiny, what should they do?
So, I mean, I'll caveat, I'm not a Facebook user. I don't really have a Facebook account.
Why is this?
So many reasons. I'm not sure.
Top one. In all honesty.
It's not for me. Not for me. I'm on Twitter. I'm not even really on Twitter anymore. Yeah, it's social media right now, especially 2017, just pretty toxic. Yeah.
I'm going to delete it from my phone, I decided.
Yeah,
I'll just address it on my desktop.
I'm sorry, @Ryan is not on Twitter. That's a crime.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to sell that thing then.
Well, I mean, even Ev Williams, like the creator of Twitter or the co-creator, like he tweets like every 90 days or something. It's very rarely in the product, right?
Yeah. So any opinion I have about this is going to be colored with that fact. Like I've really taken a huge step back from social media, intentionally, for my own sanity, and for the people in my life as well, right? Because it's like social media affects mood. And I think that's what this is about. So, I mean, ultimately, I think it's
social
a really
media
positive
affects mood. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really positive thing. But I mean, there's I guess a cynical aspect to this as well, which I think is incredibly clever. So we've got this whole, how did Facebook influence the election? Did Facebook radicalize people into unorthodox and frankly pretty messed up political views? Seems like the answer is yes. Did that tip the election? Seems like it certainly was a contributing component.
Yep.
So, we can flip the script on this. We can take care of this problem, and also, make people feel better by focusing on interpersonal reactions and communications.
Jeff, what is Facebook's culpability in all of this? They seem to have been just unrepentant about trying to spread the Facebook gospel and just get people on the platform and increase engagement. Is there anything wrong with doing that? And, isn't that the objective of business, to just get more people to use your product? And so do we blame them, or do we blame the users who can't control their usage of social media?
Well, there's a big difference between get more people to use your product and get people to spend as much time as possible with your product.
Yeah,
and
unpack that.
That was a decision that Google, for instance, took very early on, that they decided to measure success of the search engine in how quickly they could get you to where you wanted to go, rather than how much time they could get you to spend doing it. Facebook made the opposite product decision, and everything bad about Facebook since then has flowed from that, and they've stuck to it. And even in this announcement, they're not moving away from that. They're just saying, we're going to measure a different type of activity, this activity rather than this activity, but they still want you to spend as much time as possible with Facebook.
Well,
right.
I think they're also acknowledging that there's going to be a natural cap, right? So when the primitive that is being shared on the network is links and news, right? There's a theoretical infinite amount of stuff that we might see and agree with or disagree with and want to talk about and debate and discuss. When it's, whatever, photos or just random thoughts about things going on in life, or, things you might want to share with your friends and family, I mean, there's not as much of that stuff. I think they acknowledge up front that this is going to influence usage. I don't know if it's, they expect it's going to decrease monthly or daily actives, but I think that they kind of prime the market that this is going to mean fewer minutes, maybe not necessarily people dropping off, but fewer minutes per day.
It's interesting. They would actually try to get people to contain their usage of their own product. It's almost like a drug dealer being like, you know what? I'm going to sell you as much of this heroin as I can, but I just don't want you to take it all today.
Yeah, you don't want to kill your customer.
Sure. Which is kind of what's happening, is like people are using this so much that they're almost disgusted by their own usage and addiction to it. And now we have this, sort of realization that we're all addicted to it. What I would like to see with all these social networks and devices is some sort of a timeout counter, because people come up with their own devices, like they change their passwords, or there's some service that changes your password for you automatically. And then I don't think it still works, but they had done this sort of like clever, I'm going to change your password for a day and then give you back your account. It would just be great if on any app you could say, limit my app usage to, 1 hour a day for this app because I'm addicted to it, and just move on. But the interesting thing here, I think, is Facebook's only acts when it's under massive scrutiny. So anything they do, I don't actually trust at this point, and I don't actually see them as a very good actor. All of their behavior to me signals, unless we are pushed, to the brink of facing censure by a government, be it the EU or, a government body like the EU, or a specific, region, China, whatever, we're just going to push this envelope. So I don't get the sense that they actually care all that much. And I thought 2017 was a very interesting year in that Sean Parker and Chamath Palihapitiya both came out and said, wake up, people. We designed this thing to take all of your time, and, don't let your kids on it. I don't let my kids on it. And even Steve Jobs said, like, when they asked him about his kids on the iPad, he's like, we don't let our kids use screens.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me? Like, of course you wouldn't, as a parent, let them do that. And I think that 2018 will be the year that they're going to get banned. I predict they'll get banned in a country or two. A country that had already accepted them
What will get banned?
I think Facebook could be potentially banned in a country, like just literally turned off, and they'll just say like, listen, Facebook, we don't want you in this country, and we're going to just turn them off.
As like a public health threat?
I think the government will see them as a threat to the election in the way our election was, screwed with, and say, you know what, it's just not worth it. Let's cut it.
Wow.
I don't know. It's a crazy prediction, I know, but
yeah, I don't.
In the same way, South Korea is like South Korea's with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. South Korea is now like, you know what? This could be a destabilizing technology, and a destabilizing force for our government. We don't want this, right?
The only countries that I could imagine doing that are countries where Facebook isn't popular enough to tip an election, and maybe Canada. But otherwise, it'd be think about what an unpopular thing it would be to tell your populace, sorry, we're not going to let you use Facebook.
I don't think it's going to happen in a democracy as much as it'll happen in a, dictatorship or, quasi-democracy.
Well, I mean, they've, for the most part, don't allow it to begin with anyway.
It's
really hard to take away things that are mainstream products. I mean, you can take away Bitcoin in China because although there's an industry there, it's not a mainstream product. It's not a part of the core financial infrastructure. It's not, part of the WeChat payment system. So different levels of scale. But what I'm kind of wondering is this actually maybe not reactive to public perception, but actually reactive to trends that they might be seeing already that we have not yet seen, which is that maybe users are starting to churn. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe it's not the case at all. Maybe this is like truly proactive for many other reasons. But I mean, I churned out of social media, and I'm not saying I'm like representative of everyone, but I can't be. I'm not alone.
And given the current presidency and the sort of anxiety caused every day by what he says, I now understand what this term self-care was. Like, people talk about self-care, and I was like, what's that? Like, now I actually kind of get it. Like, every day hearing the president say something insane, and the reaction to it like spikes your blood pressure, it makes you outraged, it makes you depressed, it makes you sad, it makes you, like, just the last day when he just called all these countries shithole countries, it's just so depressing and infuriating that I think we just have like hundreds of millions of people just having their blood pressure and their anxiety just going up and down, up and down, up and down. This can't be good for anybody.
I got off Facebook also 3 months ago, and I started sleeping with my phone outside the bedroom so I wouldn't wake up in the night and check Twitter.
Yeah, see, that's a level of addiction that I have. I check Twitter. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I will check Twitter. Or if I wake up in the morning, I kind of check SMS, then Twitter. And I just go right to the Explore tab and just say, what did I miss? It's like, what did you miss? Like, and it's always like a Mueller or somebody's name is trending. You're like, oh my God, why is this person's name trending? And oh boy, oh God, disgusting. Oh, horrible. It's not work. I think I take it off my mobile phone and then only use it on desktop. I think that's a potential solution.
Yeah, I've heard good results from that.
Not on the phone. Because when I was writing the book, I took them off my phone. And then anytime I saw myself trying to go check that stuff out on my phone, I would just open up Google Docs and start writing notes about the book. And it made me more productive.
So part of what I did, I mean, I still have the apps on the phone. There's some utility for me. But part of what I did was I hid them. I got them out of the way.
So you put them in a folder on like the last screen.
Yeah, I mean, that helps, right? But you can still get at them.
They're not front and center.
Yeah. Another part of what I did was it was like purely cognitive, and it was just to acknowledge that by distancing myself from social media, I'm not going to be up to the second. I may be up to the hour or up to the day. I'm not going to be up to the second. So can I get comfortable with that? Can I get comfortable with not knowing the news as it is happening every second? But it'll show up on the New York Times front page, a couple hours later. I can live with that.
Yeah, you basically disengaged from being to the second.
Yeah.
And now you're down to the hour.
So let's turn that into an actual question. Can you get comfortable with not being up to the second, but being up to the hour or up to the day?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Can you?
Oh, easily.
Okay. So
at this point, I can.
Then getting off of Twitter should not be hard, right? Because that's his kind of core value proposition, is that you are up to the second.
The problem is that none of us wants to get off of these things. They do have utility, and they even, I really enjoyed Facebook when I started using it, and
Of course.
And in some ways I think that this product move is a move back toward 2008, 2009, when a lot of us enjoyed Facebook more. I don't want to stop using it altogether. I definitely don't want to stop using Twitter altogether because I like it. I just want them not to, I want to be able to use it for 20 minutes a day without my usage ramping up and up and up because I'm being, growth hacked within an inch of my life. I think they've pushed so many of us to a point where we have to experiment with cutting it out of our lives. And then we find out, oh, I can live without it. That's not a good thing to do to your customers. Don't make them run that experiment.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me is that, in the course of human, like if you really zoom out and you really think about human patterns, right? Like this is moment zero. Like we are just getting started in understanding what it means to have a fully connected planet. Publishing tools that allow us to communicate every second, the minutia, photos, the ups, the downs, the news, whatever.
The rage.
I mean, we have no idea. Ultimately, we have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
What is it going to mean to experience the human condition in 50 years or 100 years? We are figuring
Especially
out.
Imagine putting
all these
headsets
things
on
now.
I mean, and you put a headset on, or you put augmented glasses on, and now not only are you checking this every 15 minutes, it's in your line of sight every second. What is that going to do to a person's brain or emotional state? This stuff tweaks your emotional state to a very high degree, and we'll see how our Ready Player One world winds up. When we get back from this commercial break, Jeff's going to tell us about the power outage at CES and the other nonsense going on there, and Ryan is going to talk to us about the Model 3 from Tesla, which I drove here in today, and you guys know how I feel about it. All right. Hey, every website that we create now, when we need a quick website put up and it has to look beautiful, like the Launch Festival Sydney, which we're doing in June, we just go to Squarespace, and it is perfect and flawless. If you need to create a beautiful website, you can turn your cool idea into a new website in just minutes, showcase your work, blog, or publish content, sell products and services of any kind, promote your physical or online business, announce upcoming events, or special projects like we do. Those beautiful templates are created by world-class designers, and they have powerful e-commerce functionality that lets you sell anything online. That's all included with Squarespace, all that e-commerce stuff as well. And you can customize the look and feel, the settings, all just a couple of clicks away, and you don't need to have the ability to be a developer, and you're not like the old days having a developer having you over a barrel where you have to wait days to make a change to your website. Nope. Everybody in the company can update the website. It's super easy, and you can choose from over 200 .com and other domain extensions. Now they've got all these great extensions. We started using .university for founder.university and angel.university because I thought that was a cool domain name. And the analytics will help you grow in real time, built-in search engine optimization, free and secure hosting, and 24/7 award-winning customer support. So go ahead and check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code TWIST to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So go ahead and visit squarespace.com, make it yourself, and make it to stand out. You can easily create your website by yourself, and you can stand out with a beautiful website. Thanks again to our friends at Squarespace. They do an amazing job, and we truly appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you all at the Festival of Lights in Sydney for Launch Festival Sydney this year in June. Okay, let's talk, Jeff, a little bit about your experience at CES. Ryan and I are on a 10-year self-imposed ban from CES. We're never going back. Engadget destroyed any enjoyment we got out of CES.
I was wondering how you were going to finish that sentence, and that is absolutely accurate.
God, I mean, the early days, I just remember like either the first or second years, I was like, okay, we can afford, I think, 2 hotel rooms. And I'm like, okay, how many bloggers do you have? They're like, 21. I'm like, where are they staying? They're like, in the 2 hotel rooms you got us, or 3 hotel rooms. I'm like, what? And they were sleeping, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were sleeping in shifts. In the 2 or 3 hotel rooms.
And like people, on the floor or whatever.
People on the floor.
Like a cuddle puddle?
Oh, God, please. Please, no.
I think we all needed a good cuddle after some of those CES experiences, but no, not. Unfortunately, not.
I mean, it's become so huge now. And something just wonderfully paradoxical happened this year. at CES. Were you on the floor when this happened?
I was not on the floor. I was catching up on emails in my hotel room.
Thank the Lord.
But, funny thing about CES is it's so huge and spreads across so many venues that, one of the major venues had a loss of power. But you go around and talk to people, and I would say, hey, is the power back on yet? And they say, oh, what happened? The power go out? Because, only a few thousand people or I don't know, a few tens of thousands of people were there.
And it was out for 2 or 3 hours or something to this effect?
Yeah, I think it was about 2 hours before they got it. It came back on in kind of stages, but yeah, it was on.
Surprising it doesn't happen more often.
Well, there were huge torrential rains on the first couple days, and they said that I think it was water pooling on the roof caused a transformer to go out, and then right when they fired up all the smart home devices, it caused a cascade.
Perfect cover, because obviously this was some Ocean's 11 type operation. I don't know what they stole. Yeah. I think they got the iPhone 11 or something.
The laundry folding machine. That's the real prize this year.
Oh, really? There was a laundry folding. I got pitched on a laundry folding machine. I think it was at a Techstars 2 years ago. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, that makes total sense in another 3 or 4 years, but not right now.
There wasn't a laundry folding robot. I'm sorry. There were 2 laundry folding robots.
Oh.
Yeah. There was the $16,000 one, which kind of worked and actually sorts your laundry for you. Huh. And then there's a $1,000 one. That's the funny one where watching the demo of it was unintentionally funny, because you'd watch this person very carefully square off a piece of clothing and then feed it in, and then you wait a certain amount of time.
It was like an old laser printer.
Yeah, exactly.
And you wait to see the paper jam.
Except
it's not.
It was like an old laser printer if you could actually print out the page faster than the printer coming out.
Fantastic. And it's interesting. I'm watching it right now, and you're absolutely right. If you were folding 1,000 shirts for the Gap, and you had to stack them perfectly or something, you would use this device. But the ping pong robot looked somewhat promising.
Absolutely.
And all of this stuff is laughable, except, being an investor in Cafe X and having them have come to our incubator, and they're using a standard robotic arm, and having seen the 2.0 machine they have, which can do something it can do a lot of cups an hour, a minute. And they'll have 2 more locations, one on Market and one on Bush Street, opening in the first quarter. And I don't want to spoil the thunder, but that would be 3 machines. And the first machine is already profitable in the Metreon. It may not be able to fold a machine. It can play ping pong awkwardly, but it can make a perfect cup of coffee 24 hours a day, better than a barista.
In general, that was the big takeaway with the robots that were on display at CES. The ones that do something very specific and, sort of domain limited.
Verticalized.
A lot of them do what they do really well. And you say, okay, that's going to be a big deal. What disappointed more were the sort of interactive, the robots that were made for human interaction.
General purpose.
Yeah, general purpose or customer service or functions like that a lot of them just flunked their demos.
Judgment. Things that require judgment, not repetitive tasks.
I think that's right. Judgment, situational awareness, right.
Yeah. How close do you think we are to large swaths of jobs being taken over by robots outside of self-driving? Because we all agree self-driving is coming. We can debate 10 years or 30 years, and we've debated it ad nauseum on this program. But let's take other jobs outside of self-driving, which we know all self-driving cars, all driving, the concept of driving will be self-driving in our lifetime. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. So then other jobs, Ryan.
But what? So how do we define jobs and how do we define robots? So if you've ever been to Japan, right?
Yep.
You don't spend a lot of time buying things from people. You buy from vending machines because they're everywhere and they're connected to your phone or they're connected to your Suica card or whatever. So I think that
those would count because we'd be losing those jobs.
Sure.
But those jobs
those are not the kinds of jobs.
Cashiers today.
Yeah, they're not the kinds of jobs that we think about when we think about jobs being lost to robots, right? We think about, factory workers who are now being replaced by robotic arms or, baristas that are being replaced by robotic arms. So I think there's a lot of jobs that will eventually be lost, especially to general purpose robots. I don't think that a verticalized laundry folding robot is going to be a thing. But I can definitely see, way down the future, general purpose robot folding your laundry and doing many, many other things. But I think there's a very large halo of kind of adjacent things that we might not think of as being jobs that will be lost to robots, but that will be lost to some form of automation. And I mean, that it might be your financial advisor. I mean, who knows?
Well, with Wealthfront, it already is, right? Like, there's a robo portfolio. Like, they basically have conceded that stock pickers do worse on average than a low stock pickers with a full, 1.x fee are always going to underperform, a robo portfolio with 0.25 or 0.5 basis point fee. It's just, they charge too much to actually ever make it work.
I think the fundamentals, though, of like robotics is not advancing as quickly as consumers probably want it to. They're always going to be constrained by advances in battery tech, which is very slow. So, I mean, even if we had a general purpose robot today that could make judgment calls and do things on behalf of a human, it would not last very long, minutes, maybe an hour. Because battery tech just isn't there. So all of the demos that you get from the Boston Dynamics and the really amazing work that they're doing with physicality of robots.
That dog is incredible.
Yeah, it's all gas powered or it's
the latest
tethered.
one looked really good.
It's tethered, right?
Yeah.
They can't exist out in the world yet. So on the one hand, we've got these problems.
Thank the Lord.
On the AI side, we have other problems. I mean, that is advancing, but very slowly. So I think it's going to be a very, very long curve, and we're going to see incremental advancements happening on both sides. And so we'll see some human jobs that are intellectual get taken over by narrow domain AI things, but not around the corner necessarily outside of Wealthfront, I guess.
This is the old one of the stand-up robot, but there's a four-legged dog that they just they've been showing for a while, and there's like they have a video of the history of it that you might be able to find, and like the new one is so svelte that it looks like it's CGI. Like it literally looks like something from Attack of the Clones or Black Mirror. Jeff, speaking of like Black Mirror, Kodak is back, which feels like a Black Mirror episode, that Kodak is back, capturing our memories forever onto the blockchain in a cryptocurrency, and then we're all going to be trapped on the blockchain trying to fight our way out of it. It feels like Black Mirror Season 5 is writing itself.
Right. And
tell us about this.
And we're all going to be mining our new job when the robots take our job is going to be mining Kodak coin from our little box that we rent from Kodak and then give them 50% of the profits.
That's how it's going to work?
Yeah.
We get our little shoe shine box.
You get your little shoe shine box.
And then we just go out in the world and try to find electricity.
Right.
So we find like a stream or something, or we cut into like a light switch.
Right.
Get our electricity before like the robots come and chase us from stealing electricity. And then we dump our credits to try to get crackers.
Yeah, it's the future version of stealing like a spool of copper wire and selling it out behind the stadium.
Amazing. What is this Kodak thing? Because, this only feels like 2018 could give us this story. And we're only 10 days into it. I mean, amazing. Like Kodak, we didn't even know they were still in business, and their stock's up 100% or something.
Well, there's the Kodak coin, which is, I think it's basically a blockchain rights management platform is how they're describing it.
Which means what?
Well, like rights management, like a Getty Images or something.
Got it. So licensing images.
Yeah. Licensing image and preserving copyright and that kind of thing.
Paying royalties.
Right. And that
seems completely reasonable, actually.
Well, that's
the best ICO idea.
Seems completely reasonable. Has absolutely no reason to exist, though.
Right.
I mean, like this is not a problem that any industry has right now.
Yeah.
I just want to interject that.
Trust me, cryptocurrency is fantastic at solving problems that don't exist.
Yes.
Okay, and then what's the second thing that Kodak doing? It's not enough they did their coin.
No, and then to make sure that there is that there is enough Kodak coin out in the world, I guess they want you to rent a Kodak coin. Wait, is it a Bitcoin mining rig? It's a Bitcoin
I thought it was a Bitcoin.
No, I'm sorry. It's a Bitcoin mining rig.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So you're mining Bitcoin, not Kodak coin.
There it is. Look at that, huh? A huge fan. I mean, it's the ugliest piece of garbage I've ever seen in my life. It's two huge fans on a heatsink, or multiple heat sinks, with a ribbon cable that is going to an AT-ST hard drive or something, with a Pi controller. I don't know what this thing is. It's an abomination.
I like it says powerful Bitcoin miner. It's not just like your average Bitcoin miner.
It's a they should have called it a cyber Bitcoin miner. That would have just brought it right home. But there's one thing I noticed. Ryan, is there's no handle on this. So how is one to mine Bitcoin with this without a handle?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you have to, strap it to your back while you're pedaling.
Yes.
Pedaling endlessly like in Black Mirror.
This is the most literal interpretation I've ever seen of that saying that in a gold rush, you want to be renting people picks and shovels and Levi's.
Unbelievable. I mean, I know a lot of people in my family, et cetera, who own like large amounts of coins. And I'm just like, okay, I understand that you're worth large sums of money now. Convert it into US dollars, or please, some portion of it. If you have cryptocurrency right now, it's worth 100 million or $1 billion. Convert some percentage into real money. And we saw this week that crypto crashed massively, but it's still up. Where does this all end in your mind? Either of you guys have a theory about this?
I have no theory about this.
Any theory of how does this end?
I generally would say that Warren Buffett is smarter than me when it comes to financial matters, and he thinks it's all going to zero. So,
normally I think that logic is super sound, but Warren Buffett came up in a world that could never have predicted this, and so I think Warren Buffett's expertise may not necessarily apply to this.
Yeah, he missed all the internet companies. Yeah,
I'm also not saying that I think that it's going to be an amazing outcome. I think that it's so weird,
it's
and amazing and incredible, but weird and messed up that it's one of the few things in technology that I've seen in the last 20 plus years. I don't know, and I think anyone who thinks that they know is.
See, it was easier to understand in the beginning because you understood the people doing it and why they were doing it. In the early days, these were people who were anti-corporate, anti-government people who wanted to create a currency that was outside the jurisdiction of governments, and it was really like a freedom, kind of libertarian, personal freedom, anonymity, that kind of thing. But then when every shyster and huckster and criminal element puts themselves onto it, and then every speculator, and then every entrepreneur, and then every investor, now you're looking at this weird amalgamation of people who've been drawn to this big fire in the middle of the desert, and they're all standing around it going, this is huge. This is going to change everything. And it's possible the fire just goes out. And there's nothing there.
What you just described, though, is also every new technology.
Correct.
Right? It's not like Bitcoin is the only, or crypto is the only technology that has attracted hucksters and thieves and
look at
scammers.
VR.
I mean, it's all, they're always there.
Right. Everybody ran around this huge VR fire like 6 times, and it still has never caught on.
The thing with Bitcoin that it would seem to be the problem they have to solve is it's obviously more deflationary than they meant it to be. Like they wanted it to be deflationary, but now the fact that nobody will part with any of their Bitcoin under any circumstances, it's like, how is that a currency?
Yeah, this is the unique aspect of this moment. It's called FOCO, or FOCA, fear of cashing out. And I had never heard that term before this movement. But literally the people who hold it are all encouraging each other to hodl, HODL, which I guess was a typo. And so on, there's all these memes going around, hold, hodl, like do not sell. So they're all preaching to each other, don't sell. But what's really happening behind the scenes is somebody has to be selling. So I think the early people are just selling as much of their positions as possible to the new people coming in, knowing this can't last forever, but telling everybody, hold, hodl, FOCO, because if you cashed out on $1,200 for Bitcoin when it got to 12,000, you felt like a real idiot because you had 10 times your money. Instead of being a millionaire, you were a decamillionaire, whatever it is. These are the hodl memes.
So my question, to bring this back to CES, is so all Kodak really had at this point was a brand. And now they've staked this brand on a cryptocurrency, which is, I think we can all agree is ridiculous, just utterly preposterous. So the very last thing they have is now going to be tied up with this cryptocurrency that I am personally certain will fail, and obviously a lot of other people agree. So then what? I mean, did they just crash this thing? Is that it now? They just like,
well, I mean,
that's the last stand for Kodak?
Sure. Like Atari keeps going bankrupt, and then like a French company bought it, or it just like, and you know what? Marvel, I think, went through this too before the Marvel movies, of course, where like Marvel kept going bankrupt and somebody would buy it. Like there's some companies that are just always debt ridden, and then they get bought out of bankruptcy, and the brand never dies because the brand was so strong that there's some investor who comes and takes it back. Like even sitting here now, like I'm like, oh yeah, Atari, is that available? You know, like I'm that idiot where I'm like, yeah, you could do something. Everybody's got that theory, Ryan, of how to save it, how to bring it back. What could it mean to people, right?
Yeah, I don't even think that the Kodak coin thing will be a big enough deal to make a dent in the brand. Like the brand's profile, I think, you know, if you mention Kodak coin to anybody on the street a year from now, they'll just be like, what?
It's just incredible that, like, I think the trail of litigation and SEC enforcement that is going to be caused by cryptocurrency is so huge that we would need, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, I think you would need 100 or perhaps 1,000 SECs to manage the flow of investigations and litigation that's going to occur. Because in the old days, like if you had a pink sheet kind of fraud, right? There was a limited number of pink sheets being traded and a limited number of people who would do this kind of thing, you know, in New Jersey or Long Island or whatever. And the SEC would catch some number of them and it would dissuade the others. But if you look at a cryptocurrency like forking or creating an ICO or I mean, people are creating ICOs. They're not even creating the ICO. They're creating a white paper and they're giving people a future guarantee of coins. So there's a safe for coins, a future agreement for coins. I mean, that's how crazy this is. Like, not only are we not going to give you the coins, we're going to promise them to you in the future at some point. We don't even bother to make them right now. And there's so many of them because you can just put up a website and then go create a Telegram room and pump them. I don't think the SEC and law enforcement can keep up with this. And I think so many of these people are going to go to jail.
Well, I think you just nailed it, though, right? They don't have to. We just need a few laws on the books to really dissuade everyone from doing it because you can get caught. Doesn't mean you will get caught. Right? I mean, like, clearly we have all the tax laws in the known universe in the United States and
accredited investors and securities laws.
Yeah. And still people, you know, try to cheat the system. And still we have a president who, you know, has certainly cheated the system. But, you know, it's enough to dissuade most people most of the time. And that's kind of the important thing, right? Like, a couple of laws and you can reduce bad actors by 75, 80, 90%, hopefully.
The SEC,
at least in the United States.
I predict 2018, the year we see ICO and cryptocurrency innovators go to jail. We're going to see, I literally am guaranteeing right now perp walks in 2018 for cryptocurrency founders, entrepreneurs, innovators, visionaries. Okay, when we get back, the Model 3. We're going to talk about it. Okay, Texture is a great new service. Magazines have great writing and beautiful photography to tell their stories, to better expand our knowledge and entertain people. Correct, Jeff? You're at a magazine. Yes, absolutely. National Geographic takes you further away. The Atlantic gets to the heart of the issue. People helps you relax. Wired and Vogue let you see the future. But quality magazines should be available anytime without the need to carry them around or have to clutter up your home with stacks of them. The answer? Texture. The Texture app now delivers unlimited access to 200 plus premium magazines. And right now you can try Texture for free. Get your favorite magazine and back issues anytime, anywhere. So here's your call to action. It's a beautiful, beautiful product. You should go check it out. It's amazing. Go to texture.com/twist. And if you choose to continue, you can get your free trial at texture.com/twist. And if you choose to continue, you can get Texture for just $9.99 a month. That's over 30% off their listed price. Yes, go to texture.com/twist. It's an amazing product. I've checked it out. It's beautiful. And you can, if you choose to continue, you can get Texture for just $9.99 a month. Over 30% off their listed price. Jeff, magazines are great, right?
They're the best.
The best, the greatest. So go ahead and get the Atlantic, National Geographic, Wired, Vogue, all of that right on your mobile device. Texture.com/twist. Texture.com/twist. A great product, only $9.99 a month. Okay, when we left our heroes, we were talking about the Model 3. Obviously, it's been delayed in production hell, as Elon has called it multiple times. They've been trying to get through. I've had one for, I don't know, when did I get mine? August, maybe? And I have my own feelings on it, but Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have mine yet.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the all-wheel drive.
Ah, yes.
I got my invitation to configure.
Oh, good.
But I opted not to.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for the all-wheel drive next year. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've just been reading the reviews, and
what do you think of the early
really
reviews? Because I see people are saying it's mind-blowing and amazing, but there was one that said it's not mainstream. That I guess was on CNN. I don't know if that's the case. I think it does take a little adjustment not having everything be a dial.
Yeah, maybe. And you know how you take long trips, right? I mean, you got to plan slightly differently.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had an electric vehicle for a while. I've had one, or I had one for a while. I don't know if you have one.
You have a Model 3, right?
Not anymore.
A Model S.
Yeah, not anymore. I got rid of it last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what are you pushing now?
Unfortunately, it's
no car.
No, it's not. It's not great. Really looking forward to that Model 3.
But with the Model S, it was fairly simple to use superchargers, right? You didn't find that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, there were a few occasions in the early days because I had an early one, not as early as yours, but I had an early one. And, you know, if you were taking like a long road trip, right, you couldn't see ahead back in those days. Was there availability? Were you going to be able to charge at this place? You know, or were there open bays?
That was a definite issue because they got so popular so quick that you didn't know what the line would be to charge. And charging takes 20 minutes to an hour, depending on what type of trip you're taking and how many other stations there are. So you could pull up to stations, see 6 people waiting. It could take you an hour to get a spot. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and I remember taking a trip in the early days before they had the routing system that told you, like, you have gone too far. If you continue on this path, you are going to run out of energy.
Right.
And I remember, you know, thinking, oh my God, I missed like my last supercharger. I'm going to run out and freaking out.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they solved all those problems. But yeah, I'm not really sure I agree with like it's not a mainstream vehicle. It's pretty clear.
It's super mainstream, having driven it. And if you look at the chart of the superchargers now, there are so many. It's crazy. Like, I just drove the Model X that we have from San Francisco to LA with the dogs. We spent the holidays in LA with our friends. And you just stop at Harris Ranch. I get the prime rib there. They got a great prime rib. It takes me an hour to charge the thing fully. And it takes me an hour to order and get the prime rib and take the dogs for a walk anyway. But it's super easy. And the self-driving works flawlessly down the 5. It's just perfect. It's almost too perfect, I have to say. Like, I think Google's point that, like, you cannot trust humans, it will lull you into believing it's flawless because it will be flawless for hours on end. But if there's road work and those, you know, lanes go away and the paint goes away, it will disengage. So you cannot take your eyes off the road with it, but it does make the driving less arduous because you're not making micro adjustments to stay in the lane or adjusting for cruise control, right? But it was so fast. I was getting over 300 miles added an hour at these supercharging stations. So they seem to have upgraded the supercharging stations since they first started using them. We used to get like 150 miles an hour. Now you get like 315 was the peak I think I saw. So I think it's a flawless car.
I heard from someone in a position to know that Tesla is intentionally underplaying how much the Model 3 has, like how similar it is to the S, or how close it is to
I think
the S
that's accurate.
in all that, because they just don't want to send a stampede of people who would buy the S. They need people to keep buying the S.
Right.
I think that's, and in fairness, owning both of these cars, they are two very different cars and experiences. But I will say I find myself, when I leave the house, and maybe it's because it's new, I want to take the 3. I don't want to take the S. The S is a bigger car, which I find more burdensome to park, and, you know, I'm driving alone in it often, and I like the smaller car. So I guess if I had a BMW 3 Series and a BMW 7 in my driveway, I'd probably want to take the 3, I guess, even though the 7 is more plush and has more features. But the X is really a much different car with the gull-wing doors and the Falcon doors and all the other features. And there are features that the Model 3 doesn't have. But getting point A to point B, the 3 is, I think, the best car ever made. I mean, it literally is, I think, life-changing. And it has 320-mile range, Ryan. So, like, to see the battery at 320 miles is like, wait, I can get to Tahoe on one charge or LA on almost one charge. It's kind of mind-blowing. Like, because when the first one came out, the Roadster, it was I think it was rated like 180 miles. But realistically, you get more like 100 or 120 if you drove it like a sports car. So it was a daily driver, but not for almost, a lot of people needed to put a charging station at work and charge when they were at work, as well as most people don't have to do that. Nobody has to do that today.
So I read something, I think last week on Electrek that 80%, or I might be fudging the number, but a very large percentage of auto industry executives, both in the US and internationally, still believe that hydrogen is going to be the thing in the future, which is baffling. Yeah, totally baffling to me.
Makes no sense.
They're all working on electric vehicle programs, but I'm guessing they're maybe only doing that as a hedge until, they think maybe Tesla's going to go bust or something, and then they can throw it all in the wind. But yeah, I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, the competitive advantage of the moat that they're building with supercharger network is so massive.
Why do you think it's such a? I mean, I agree with you, but what do you think the supercharger network really means? Like, why is this such an advantage?
So most people don't travel super long distances every single day. And those that do, go from point A to point B and are probably not going to be using the supercharger network every day. But I think that there is occasion to do that. And frankly, people talk themselves out of products based on some fairly irrational and kind of edge casey uses. And we've seen this in all kinds of product categories. It happened in the iPhone in the early days and just all kinds of things.
No keyboard.
Sure. Absolutely. It's one of the better examples. Or, no 3G. Well, like they added eventually. And I think one of the primary things that people get freaked out about with electric cars is, it's not going to, I can't drive it, it's from one coast to the other or whatever. Like, I don't know how often you're doing that, but if you wanted to, I suppose you could in another EV, but this just solves that problem. Like, it completely makes that a non-issue.
The range anxiety was considered the big reason not to get an electric car. And now they've just totally squashed that. And it's funny, every time Tesla solves a huge problem, I find that some members of the press seem to like try to find the next problem and like harp on that. I kind of feel like the press has it out for that, or some members of the press have it out for them. Do you think they get treated unfairly, Jeff? Or do you think or the press just is doing their job because I was a member of the press, but I kind of feel like they just bashed Tesla like over and over again. Like, now the issue they're saying is how long the wait at charging stations if they fill up. They've solved that. Then the issue became how long it takes to charge. And it doesn't take very long to charge. So it's like by the time you get your coffee and use the bathroom, you're charged.
Well, it depends on if you're talking about the tech press or the automotive press. I think the tech press is generally pretty adulatory of Tesla, but with the exception of calling a lot of attention to predictions that they make, forecasts that they make, that which it's just ridiculous, their track record of making predictions that they don't follow through on, which is,
late.
I think fair, but at the same time, everybody regards Elon as, a genius and an icon. And he actually, I think, escapes a lot of the criticism that other, some other figures at his level in the tech world get. I think the kind of thing you're talking about is more maybe coming from the automotive and consumer press.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal has been dogging them so hard, saying like the company's insolvent or something. And it's like, well, I mean, listen, they've raised a lot of money, but I mean, you could say the same thing about Amazon for not making a profit for 20 years. Like, it's kind of like not making a profit and building this huge business is kind of the new model of building companies, don't you think?
Well, there's a difference between not making a profit and teetering on the brink of insolvency, which they have been doing. I mean, Wall Street hates them for a reason. I had a interview with Elon a few months ago, and this topic came up, and he said, yeah, actually last night I had a dream. I had a nightmare that Tesla ran out of money. Okay.
Pretty honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did the money go? Yeah, no, I will say, like, almost every car has been late by some amount of time, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. They've always been slow, but he's always over-delivered. And I think it's an important thing for entrepreneurs. I tell young entrepreneurs or people who are like starting companies, like, you can be late. That's not a problem. Just don't run out of money. And it better be good, right? Like, make it good. If you're late, it's got to be good. If you're early and you're testing stuff, like, Airbnb and Uber threw stuff into the wild. It wasn't perfect. It's okay. They're live testing it. With cars, you can't do that. Rockets, you can't do that. You can be late, but it's got to be great. You got to perform. All right, let's close up. James Damore. Oh my God.
Do we have to?
I don't know if we have to. I mean, we could. I'll put up the horrible for Peter Thiel or Gawker or James Damore. Which one?
Murderer's Row there. Well, we could talk about the Peter Thiel James Damore connection. That would be our way out.
Wait. Is there a connection?
Apparently, they had a couple of meetings. They had after he got fired from Google.
Sure.
That was his bat signal to Peter to come swooping in and say, "You're one of mine," and they had a couple meetings.
It makes total sense that would happen. That's sort of I wouldn't say it's the most 2017 thing to happen, but it's on the top 10 2017 things of 2017.
Yeah. It's yeah. It's really.
What's your
Peter
take
Thiel,
on this? What's your take on Peter Thiel at this point?
Boy, it is just the way that his public profile has morphed over the last 18 months is pretty. And I mean, because everybody knew he had some views that were, out there. But it just now it feels like he's hiding around every corner. That like every time something crazy happens in the world, or every time some new like crazy alt-right figure pops up preaching something insane, that you're half expecting now to find out that like, oh yeah, by the way, Peter Thiel's cutting him checks.
It's literally like a James Bond villain. What's the group? Spectre?
Yeah.
Spectre, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's literally like he's got a Spectre octopus ring on. Go ahead, right.
So, I mean, what's the phrase, the old one? Like, money just reveals who you really are.
Yeah.
So what I find most fascinating about Peter Thiel, reserving any judgment, although, I mean, there's some judgment, but he seems to, he knows exactly how he is portrayed, and how the things that he does, he's a super smart guy, how the things he does lead to this perception of him, and yet he continues to do them. So he seems to be completely comfortable with the Peter Thiel that we all have come to.
He's self-aware.
Understand. Yeah.
And embraces being the head of Spectre.
I mean, he certainly hasn't made any moves that would indicate to any outside observers that he's uncomfortable with how he's perceived right now.
He did say he didn't like the vampire thing. He found the vampire thing uncomfortable for him.
That's the line?
That was too far. That was the line.
That was the line.
He said the craziest thing that happened, he told Maureen Dowd this, the craziest thing that happened around the 2016 election was the allegations that he was a vampire, which, in case anyone who isn't up to speed on this, that he
had
told
a blood
me
boy.
that he was interested in the science
blood transfusions.
Blood transfusions.
Blood transfusions make total sense. If blood is obviously like a critical component of our health, there is some obvious, you're doing a book on this kind of stuff. People blood dope, right? To put oxygen in their blood. Like, there is some theory that putting blood and stem cells and other things in your body would regenerate your body. Completely sound.
Yeah, I mean, and there's decent science behind it too.
Sure.
Not in humans.
Right.
I mean, that's just starting out, but yeah.
I think Silicon Valley had the best take on it with Blood Boys. Like, and that character who they had sort of be, they've now had two characters kind of play Peter Thiel.
Right, because the
first one died, and then they're just like, yeah, make the Google guy Peter Thiel now. Like, let him get the. I have such a terrible cold. I literally got a. I think I'm becoming a character now because I literally had an IV this week to get, with my flu, to just get fluids into me. So I did an IV.
An IV filled with someone else's blood?
No, I think it had like, whatever they put in them, electrolytes or
saline,
whatever, just to like make you come back to life. This James Damore stuff is truly horrible. He literally took every like discussion on their forums and publish them to try to embarrass people. And he's suing them because, and it's hard to say this with any kind of a straight face, but he's suing for discrimination. And he's creating a class action lawsuit for white men being discriminated against.
And conservatives, yes.
And conservatives. Dude. Just not... No.
So the interesting twist here that just happened is a employee who left Google just published some back and forth that they had with HR, where this guy says he was really leaned on heavily by HR and his supervisors to stop making a stink about diversity. That basically he was told that he was causing division among his coworkers for trying to talk about the need for more diversity. So he feels policed and intimidated in the same way that James Damore felt policed.
Oh no, Google. To be clear, Google is being sued on both sides of the same issue. Yeah. They're being sued correctly, if I'm correct, for discrimination against women or minorities, and now by whites and conservatives.
Yeah.
So this new account, and it went really high up. I mean, in the company, I think it went to what's his name, Urs, who's like the SVP Eng, 8th employee of Google. Like he personally reached out to this guy Corey and told him to stop. But I mean, I think ultimately there's just a severe amount of discomfort about talking about any of this stuff at Google and at a lot of companies.
Or
that's kind of how I mean, I'm not saying that that was the appropriate way to address that at Google. Far from it. But my read on it was Google just doesn't want to talk about this stuff internally. Like they are having a really hard time, it sounds like, dealing with this.
They don't want to talk about it internally, but they're handcuffed by this conception they have of themselves as a company where you can talk about anything you want internally. There's a struggle, there's a tug of war going on between what Google was in its very early days.
Yeah, and what a small company can be.
Exactly.
Versus a big company. A small company can have everybody talking on a message board. You can't have 100,000 people talking on a message board, because what happens is somebody like James Damore comes out and says, I'm going to broadcast to the entire company that women have smaller brains than men, and women do not know how to program, and then use all kinds of weird citations to try to prove some bizarre point.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, poof,
and, what they needed to do was at the very highest levels swoop in and address that and refute that, and not to attempt to suppress discussion about it, because I mean obviously it's completely inappropriate and insane. I mean, just utterly batshit. But put that aside, I mean, the leadership at Google needed to actually address these things and speak to them, and not just remain silent or try to, usher the conversation offline, which is, I think, ultimately what happened and why they're kind of feeling it from both sides. I mean, the time to not talk about this stuff is gone. That is no longer what's appropriate. Right. The only appropriate thing is to actually get out there, get in the ring and talk about how disgusting these views are.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's an expression, sometimes the way to get there is to go through it. And like going through it is not fun. But for Google to go through the hard discussion of like, here's the things. Yes, he's citing these studies. Yes, these studies exist in the world that different ethnicities from different regions have different profiles, or different genders have different, I mean, obviously the biology of the genders are different. I mean, you don't have to have a PhD in biology to understand this. And here are the differences. Here's what he quoted. Here's why that all doesn't matter. Because we all want to live in a just world where anybody could pursue any career. So,
but I think after having that conversation, then, step number 4 is, and here's why we're not going to be a free-for-all workplace where anybody can bring up this issue at any time for public discussion. Like there's a time and a place to talk about it at work, to say, to up the chain, we need to have more diversity, whatever. But the idea that that's like a central part of your job is something that I think to anybody in any other industry would say, that's just bizarre.
But I don't know. I mean, tech has still presaged a lot of what's happening in the broader social movements today. I mean, the tech world was talking about inequality of gender and, suppressing and capping women's careers, I would say certainly long before Hollywood or finance. So, I mean, we haven't, as an industry, resolved this by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like we've been talking about this longer, and I don't think that we should shut down conversation about it. I think it still has to happen, and I think especially at a company like Google that creates cultural norms for a lot of the rest of the industry, considering how many Googlers spin out and start their own companies.
Yeah.
That
the
it's
question
important
is,
that this
can you have
conversation
100,000 people or whatever it is on a message board discussing this in a reasonable way? Like, you might have to break off into groups just to have a reasonable discussion. What I think is great about our industry, and just to give us some, I think, or to have some appreciation of what's been done well here, is has any other industry published the statistics or published salaries in the way our industry has to try to get to equality? Because if you look at the Hollywood, this whole idea of these reshoots that occurred, and Mark Wahlberg got $1.5 million, and the woman who did the reshoots got $1,000 or something, like, at least we're trying to get to equal pay, right? And publishing those kind of statistics, and maybe it's off 20 or 30% in some companies, but I don't know if it's off 15,000x or something, like in Hollywood.
Well, there might be a little bit of excessive back padding in that formulation, because trying to get there is, I think there are a lot of activists who would say we pushed really, really, really hard for these companies to get there, and a lot of them dug in their heels for years and resisted it. So yes, I mean, to the credit of the companies that have,
and to the credit of the people who pushed it, right? Like there were very specific people. I'm trying to remember the woman's name who specifically published everybody's salaries in a Google sheet, and I think it was specifically at Google. That's a pretty brave thing to do, to get all your coworkers to publish their salaries and what their job titles are. And
yeah, she's at Slack now, I think, right? I
think so. Yeah, I mean that seems to me to be like critical key moment in the history of all this. All right, we've gone over an hour. Sorry for that. And let's say thank you to our guests. Thanks Ryan. Thanks Jeff. And thanks Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. And we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye bye. We did it.